Ça va? Je suis Immortal Technique. You're watching Montreality, motherfucker. Peace. My story, my history, my people's history is very long. We lived for thousands and thousands of years in South America. But my personal story is that I was born in el Hospital Militar de Lima, and that I came to Harlem in the 80s. I lived here, and I immediately became enamored with the culture of the city, and I was surrounded by hip-hop culture. It wasn't even like I had to go discover it, you know? The way young people do now, they hear what's on the radio, and then they have to go dig for what song started hip-hop. You know, they have to dig for golden era hip-hop. They have to find, you know, Gangstar, because it's not on the radio right now, or it's not on MTV. You know, they have to find Rakim and KRS-One. I grew up with that on the radio. I grew up with Public Enemy on like Hot 97. You know what I mean? Just that type of immersion in a culture, I think was relative to that era. But I think what exists now as a counterbalance. So people don't really have any excuses. It's not like you can say, oh, well, these young kids now don't have access. Now you have the internet. So if you are like 13 or 14, you have access to a wider scope of knowledge than people that grew up in the golden era could possibly imagine, because now you can get hip hop from every corner of the world since it first started. You know, I used the experiences that I had, and I definitely took what I learned from hip-hop and from the Zulu Nation and applied it to life and to building a stronger revolutionary foundation. And by that, I mean taking it out of the realm of just rhyming about it and living it, which is what I've always wanted to do anyway. I was a really terrible student, to be honest. Like, I was smart, but I didn't have anything. I think I learned more from being opposed to the curriculum as opposed to following it. I wanted to read what I wanted to read. I didn't want to read what they assigned me to read, and when I had to, I found it to be the most boring, you know, nonsense that I think I was ever forced to do as a child. Like, what, you growing up in the hood, what the hell does Jane Eyre have to do about all this? Yeah, of course, you know, you reading the projects about a nigga locking his crazy ass wife up somewhere. Shouldn't we be reading something that has to do with our people, with our culture, with what we're going through in the struggle here? Yeah, all right, Oliver Twist is about poor people. But how does that relate to the racism that we're forced to suffer through? Or the cultural imbalance? Or the idea of what being civilized is? You know, you take two people, and I just had a conversation with a very, very dear person about this. But what's the difference between how they see the civilized world and how we do? You take two different people that have degrees of civilization to them. The colonizer and the person who's colonized. African guy, goat herder, wearing a loincloth, it's very hot, he speaks his own native language, he gives thanks to the earth and the sun and the moon and the stars. And then jumping off a boat is a unshaven, unbathed, armor-wearing, arc booster or musket-toting, religious fanatic European who steals him from his home, who rapes his wife and his children, who lies to him about the history of his people, whose ancestors now demand that he be painted in a nice light in American and in all sorts of other history. This person is now the civilized one? And the nigga that was minding his own motherfucking business, taking care of his family, is the animal, the barbarian that needs to be quote-unquote civilized? Modern American curriculum and institution never addressed that shit for me. You know, I had to go to the prison system to really discover the lies that my teacher told me growing up. So in a sense, I think I had several learning institutions, so I can't say that one was the only one, but I think they all served in their own special way, although I don't recommend the latter for anybody. As a Latino, you know, we have a strong work ethic, and my parents especially, were like, look, dude, you're gonna go get a fucking job when you're like 12 years old. So I did. I had a job repairing TVs And these things that used to be called VCRs, no one uses them anymore. But I know how to fix those because I just have a crazy memory. But I used to repair TVs, like if something was wrong with the circuit board or something, I would just solder it there. So I learned about electronics. I took up a little apprenticeship, just trying to make extra money however I could. You know, me and my peoples used to hustle, but I don't glorify that in my music because I don't think that's not a long-term strategy. You know, you talk about the life that people want. Like you ask young people, you want to be in the cold on Friday at 4 o'clock in the morning serving up rocks? Or would you rather be in a club surrounded by sexy, beautiful women? Or would you rather be on a plane to Morocco? You know, or would you rather have nice things for your family? You do one, or you think that one is the only way to get the other one. But you don't really want that. You don't want to be fearing for your life or have to worry about that competitors and other people want to kick in your door and shoot you in the face or use your children as hostages. That's not the life anyone wants to live. But they're willing to suffer it because they think that will lead to this. What you really want is the successes and the spoils of war. You don't really want to deal with war itself. So I think that the basic premise to what your question is asking is, how does the youth then relate from one aspect of trials and tribulations to the other? How do we get here without the imagery of this? Because this life of criminality is only compatible with success for a short period of time. Because eventually that shit catches up to you in one way or another. Now, there's a different life that's also compatible with success, which is the American model of capitalism, which is predatory and parasitical in nature, but at the same time, it creates this. So people in this country are, especially young people, are fooled into thinking the only way that I can be successful is to play this by the books, to own a company, to, you know, work at this, like the Republican model of businesses, or to be a hustler or a killer, or, you know what I mean, to get money the quick way. And I think that you can present people with a wide variety of ideas about what differences there are in the world, you know. And as naive as we think the rest of the world is, we're just as naive for locking ourselves into that small little box. Success isn't measured by what you have, it's measured by what you had to sacrifice in order to get to where you are. And I had to sacrifice a lot of things, you know. I had to put the idea of having a family on hold for a little while. You know, now I'm 30, just like think about it more and more. But the bottom line being is that when you examine other people's lives and you see what they have time for, you realize you don't have time for that. You know, I haven't taken a vacation in 5-6 years. I go to visit my family in Peru. I'm working there. I have lands down there. I have a house down there. You know, I have to take care of family down there. So it's not a vacation. It's a good time spent with my family, but it's not a vacation. You know, a day off in the middle of a tour schedule, that's not a vacation. You know, I'm on the road for 38 days. I get 3 days off. That's not a fucking vacation. You know, you have to realize that if you want to be successful independently, that it's not for everybody. You know, some people can't wake up on their own. They need a babysitter. They need someone to wipe their ass. You know, you talk to anybody that's been in the industry for 20 years, that's been part of the game, you know, they're going to realize that there's a level that a label does handle certain affairs for you that you don't just sell. I mean, how many artists really do their own taxes? Right? How many of them balance the budget by themselves? They don't have a manager or don't have other people to do it. The problem is that when you become so dependent on other people, it makes it hard for you to realize what you need to do if they were all of a sudden to be out of your life. And if you don't learn to delegate that responsibility, then you're going to be overworked. So it's a very thin line to walk. And that's why I say that really independent music and the success in that is for people that are willing to lose sleep and are willing to dedicate and invest in themselves. Because I see a lot of people invest in other things, but they don't invest in themselves. You know, you bought a nice car, you bought a nice jacket, a nice set of jewelry. That's cool, but think about what you did. The first second you got money, that money went to someone outside of your community. It went to buy something that has no bearing on what you did. And I'm not criticizing people for it, because if you have the money to buy yourself, you know, a house and buy your mom a house and be secure and everything else is taken care of, the basics, I can't tell you what to do with your money. I can advise you about what's going to be most beneficial. But at the same time, I tell people success is just being able to be happy in life too. Because if you're not happy, then you're not successful. You have all the fucking money in the world. Nobody trusts you. Nobody likes you. People pretend to laugh at your jokes because you're rich and you own a company. You know, at some point that has to you have to realize that that's just what it is. You know, we got almost 600,000 downloads. I think we're around there. It gave me an incredible worldwide response. People had been expecting to hear the Martyr ever since I first announced it, and they didn't know what kind of album it was going to be. I explained to them that it was a compilation. It was an album, but it was a series of songs that had been written like 3 to 4 years ago, and there was some that were just completed now. There was some that I started writing 3 years ago that I finished lately, or that I had someone come spit a verse on so I could get a clearer idea of the entire song. And then there were like a good 4 or 5 songs that I wrote literally like during the process of making it. So it was a mixture of both, and it really showed me that if I can make 128,000 people download something on the first day that it comes out, that there's a demand, and that, you know, that my soldiers have remained loyal, that they haven't run. And in fact, I feel so blessed to be one of the few artists that can have people waiting 2 or 3 years for an album, and they'll come back because they know that I took time to research everything that's involved, that there's a painstaking amount of work that goes into me putting out a record. You know, it's not like I just say anything that comes to mind and start talking wild and reckless and cursing on a microphone. I also got an incredibly good response about the technical aspect of what I've been working on. Like this sounded funny, but I took breathing classes to help the flow, and it really worked. For example, The Rich Man's World and several other songs, and people were like, wow, you know, I've never heard you flow like that. Like, you're in the pocket so much more than before. And I was like, well, you know, brother, at the end of Revolutionary Volume 2, going through the third world, I basically realized, yo, if I want to extend my breath, if I want to be able to have a more powerful delivery, you know, you can't just breathe through the lungs, you have to breathe through the diaphragm, you have to measure your breaths, you really have to have a really good sense of timing. And so I worked on that for a couple of years, and it really showed. It wasn't something that happened overnight. My hat's off to people who have that natural ability, that natural talent, or maybe their parents schooled them when they were real young, like, no, this is how you breathe. You know, it almost took me back to my days of jiu-jitsu, when they really made you like, you know, this is how you're gonna breathe. You're gonna breathe while you're doing push-ups on your fucking knuckles, with like your legs being held in the air by, you know, the sensei. It just crazy, all kinds of breathing techniques that I guess I was forced to relearn, but it really was something that helped me and was an incredible addition to all the things I was doing. Sometimes, but sometimes not. I mean, look, I'm more likely to be killed by some idiot fanatic than by some CIA mole. I mean, realistically speaking, the way they deal with people is not just by wholesale assassination. And there's a series of other things that have to be done before that gets chosen as an option. First, they want to disgrace people. They want to marginalize them. They don't want to make them seem as important as they are, because that's what's the most threatening. You know, it's like when imagine one of the best lyricists in the underground all of a sudden took like a slice out of Jay-Z or 50 Cent or Eminem or anyone on the top. It's not in their benefit to respond. What do they get from it? Here's a fucking no-name, I'm gonna give you the time of day. It's like Apollo Creed taking Rocky out the streets and saying, all right, fight me in front of everybody. Why? You haven't earned that. You haven't done that. For them, it's the same kind of mentality. You know, just like Jay don't respond until he has to, until he wants to. They're not going to respond to me unless they want to, because responding to me acknowledges that a lot of the things that I'm saying are true and that they're a necessity to deal with. They would rather just be like, yeah, whatever, just another conspiracy theorist. Okay, look up every single thing that I said on the Martyr and talk to me about that. Look up everything that I said on the Third World, etc. You know, I'm not in the business of just lying to people. You know, maybe some schizophrenic on Twitter will tell you different, but that's fine. You know, the world's full of people like that. Beautiful. You know, we just admitted another 4 children. I think it was really a testament to the power of underground hip hop. We had no corporate sponsors, and it was successful. It was a dangerous mission, but it was something that needed to be done. It was something that I found was healing for the soul, and it made me realize that if I can be successful in those conditions, what's to stop me from doing the same thing in Peru or Salvador or Harlem or anywhere else? You know, people are denied their history and their culture, then they're cut off from who they really are. People were trying to forget about what that is. Oh, that's just me being a good businessman or a good American, or, you know, and that's not true, because you're taking advantage of other Americans and other people in the world for your personal gain. And it doesn't have to be that way. You know, you're just piggybacking off a broken system that doesn't work. You know, the failure of American capitalism and the necessity for bailouts and socialism is more than proof of that. You know, there are other socialist entities in the world. They're all over Scandinavia, you know, they're in Latin America. And yet this country vigorously holds on to the idea that nothing about it could ever potentially be socialist. But what is it? The police department, fire department, post office. What would happen if these things were privatized? You call up the police, somebody's breaking in your crib. I'm sorry, you haven't paid your police bill. Hey, fuck you. My house is on fire. Did you buy the service? No? Well, then I'm gonna have to refer you to the, you know, to the operator and the answering machine and the automated system. You know, really? You ever been part of the military, close to a socialist system as you can? Anything you fucking do, they pay for it, or they got you. They tell you what to do. You know, you want to live in a caricature of what Soviet Russia was like? That's fine. You want to criticize Cuba and Venezuela, but I don't hear you say anything about Sweden and Scandinavia. Why is that? Maybe because you're not exploiting those countries the way you exploit ours? Maybe it's because they're white and we're Latino? That can't be it, can it? No one can be a racist in 2012, can they? Racism doesn't exist now that we have a black president, right? You know, these things are what people say to themselves in order they can make the conversation nicer and they can feel more comfortable. But we all know what it really is. It's a combination of both. I'm planning to release this year. About halfway through. I've written a couple of books, but I just never released them to people. One is a collection of stories and the other one's just about the world we live in now. I named them, but I'm not gonna say the titles here, so I do have a title, but I just can't tell you. My keys in my phone.
Okay.
Oh God, my favorite airport in the world. Wow. Probably somewhere really far away. It's not Atlanta Airport. Atlanta International, them niggas delayed me when I came home from Colombia for like a half a day, asking me what my links were to people here and there. Nonsense. I just came back from New Zealand and Australia, and in those airports, I didn't have to take my shoes off. I didn't have to take my belt off. I walked through security drinking water. They talk to you with respect. Nobody ever tries to touch you. So I would say those airports. All of them. All of those airports in Australia, in Melbourne and in Brisbane and Tasmania, Adelaide. Sydney is a little, yeah, but they still didn't ask me for shit. And then in Wellington, in New Zealand, they asked me for nothing. It's just such a pleasure to be at an airport where people aren't yelling at you to strip down, and you know, you feel like you're going to Rikers. That's what LaGuardia and JFK feel like. So it was a pleasure to be in an open society like that where, you know, there's not so much fear-mongering about terrorism, that people have given up their freedom in exchange for quote-unquote stability. No, I don't have any tattoos. And it's not that I'm opposed to them. I think once I find something that I really want to put on myself forever, I will. If I don't, then I never will. I never get high. before the show, ever. People come up to me and they offer me liquor or weed. They're like, oh, you want some liquor or weed? And I'm not, this is not about any other artist but myself. I can't answer for other people. I just know that for me and for my crew, we don't get fucked up before the show. Afterwards, if people want to party and do whatever they want to do, that's fine. In terms of marijuana, though, I think there's a big debate about the difference between legalizing it and decriminalizing it. That wouldn't make it accessible for the government to come in and have every aspect of control over. So I'm definitely for decriminalization. Legalization is a whole nother story. I think I'd have to see the details of what they would have in mind about it. But it has an incredible part of the American story involved with it. I think that's something that's lost in the translation of the songs and of the stuff. You know, the first American flag was made out of hemp. But you had to grow hemp. Like literally, that was a condition of owning land back in the day because they wanted to make sure that Britain wasn't able to reinforce a cotton trade there. They wanted an alternative. It was a good business move. And somewhere along the way, a bunch of religious fanatics and pious individuals, a bunch of self-righteous fucks, and some businessmen got together and realized, hey, this is not something that we need in our society because we can make more money with these other drugs. So, you know, but plenty of founding fathers smoked weed. I don't think that society this way wants to remember that, but it's honestly the truth. You know, for people to deny that is just absurd. It's kind of an insult to American history. But I think that it bears an important part of this country, and it should be talked about a lot more. And you know, as for artists that rhyme about it, I can't criticize people for what they rap about. You know, as long as they know the facts behind it, you know, which I'm pretty sure a lot of them do. And I hope that they continue to put that information out to people so that there isn't a sense of fear-mongering going on about that. But I will say that if you do, it's like from an old Nice and Smooth song where he goes, too much of anything makes you an addict. It's true. Just be careful, you know. Don't spend your whole... As soon as you start losing money because of what the fuck you're doing, it's time to cut that off for a little while, you know. You start missing meetings, you don't show up to school, you miss your mother's birthday because you was getting high. You got a problem, nigga. It's just like anything else. It's like a drinking problem. Oh, I could be fine. I'm having a few beers with my niggas. All right, once you start losing a job because you drinking all the time, it's not fun. It's not cool anymore. Then you're not the 17-year-old that snuck a bottle of Bacardi Limon out to go drink and have some fun and meet some shorties. No, you're a 35-year-old nigga who's drunk and can't control himself. You're a 28-year-old man that gets drunk and can't control himself. Fuck is wrong with you? The same thing applies to anything else. Pills, weed, coke, anything. Women. That's the, yeah. Don't get me started, nigga. Real shit. That's the one thing niggas addicted to more than anything else. But you ruining relationships, divorcing, fucking up your business. Grow up, nigga. Alright. Is there anything else, man? I always wanted to work with Brother Ali, and we finally got to doing it. Me and Vinny Paz just did a song together. People have been talking about that for a while. I always wanted to do a song with Cool G Rap because I thought he was just one of the nicest that ever lived, and his flow was impeccable. And one day it'll happen, you know. Big shout out to G Rap. We talk now and then, so we'll link up eventually. But you know, there would definitely be an honor. Him, Lord Finesse. I already did a song with KRS-One, but you know, he's one of the greatest that ever did this. Rakim, you know, basically all the people that I grew up, you know, admiring for the way that they had this craft. And I say that with all due respect, you know, because they paved the way so that artists like myself and for anybody else that's out there, from one spectrum to another, you know what I mean? From a Mano to a Wiz Khalifa to you know, Kendrick Lamar to an Immortal Technique to a Diabolic, anybody, you know, without those people that laid the foundation, you know, you always have to respect that. It doesn't mean they can get away with anything, you know. If they fuck up or any of the legends do something that's improper, you know, they're subject to the same amount of criticism as anybody else. So you don't get a free pass. But you do get more respect than any random motherfucker I'm gonna meet, because you created and you helped to solidify it and lay the foundation for an art form that makes us able to feed our families and do something that's positive and righteous and not negative and stupid, and give a good example to our children of what it is to run a business, to be responsible. And all the people that I just mentioned that are coming up right now, I see them doing that, you know, using that foundation that was laid for us. And pretty soon, doesn't matter if you're a 19-year-old artist right now, that's my favorite shit, when artists argue with the legends and they're like, oh, you old. Motherfucker, are you in a time warp, nigga? You gonna grow old too. One day you gonna be 45 years old. You know, you gonna have some 15-year-old nigga laughing at your ass. Shut up, dude. You know, realize these people laid the foundation for us to be here. So I give them nothing but respect, you know? Even the people that aren't technically like a quote-unquote pioneer of hip-hop, that weren't there in like 1979, but they still, you know, like Styles P, he's a veteran I respect very, very much, you know? These are people that, Chino Excel, a veteran that I have a lot of respect for. The people that continue to do this and who provide an example of success and of loyalty to their fam, to me and all the other motherfuckers that's out there. So big up to them, and I hope that more young people who watch this go out there and learn the history of hip hop and who laid it down so that we could all be here. Oh, I'm already working with them. Big shout out to DJ Premier. He's gonna be on the Middle Passage. Just talked to him. Shout out to Ninth Wonder. We've been trying to work together for a long time. We recently got together. It was cool. I actually went down to North Carolina, just chilling there for like a few days, hanging out. But there maybe like one or two more, but I don't know. You know, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, whatever makes the music sound better. It's not. I never look at it in terms of, oh, I need this feature to sell to this, or I need this beat to sell it. Look, anyone can make very powerful music. It helps to have a production name sometimes if you're looking for selling points for a marketing aspect to your record, but it doesn't make the record hot. What makes the record hot is the chemistry between either the sample, whatever's been played out, the sheet music and how it fits into drum patterns, and if you make people feel what you're rhyming about. Can I relate to what you're saying in one way or another? Either a story about poverty or a story about glory. Anything else? I mean, I think at some point you really have to ask yourself these important questions about the music that you're making. What's the song about? If you got 12 songs on your album and I ask you what the song's about, and you give me the same answer for 12 songs, I think that there should be a lot of diversity in the music that we make. You know, even revolutionary music can't be about the same thing all the time. You know, you have to find different aspects to it. You rhyme from the perspective of a rich person, like I did on Rich Man's World. We rhymed about natural beauty as opposed to synthetic beauty or natural beauty. You know, we brought to everything the physical relationship that we have versus the spiritual one, and what we'll be remembered for in the future. Toast to the dead. I mean, it can't just be one-dimensional. So if you rap about drugs, you know what I mean? You rhyme about everything. You rhyme about killing niggas and shooting people, fine. But what are the dimensions to it? You know, you see their faces after they die. You ever feel guilty because you walk past a funeral home and you know you put somebody in there, whose family's crying outside? You're a human being. Don't pretend you're a fucking machine, because if someone puts a gun to your fucking kid's head, you're gonna cry like a bitch and you're gonna beg for his fucking life. Don't pretend to be anybody else. You can be killed like an ordinary man. You know, everyone's got a breaking point. You want to resist torture? Sure. But even the Navy SEALs will tell you every man got a breaking point. Tell me that story. Tell me that pain. You know, tell me what it's like to be selling the same things that your parents were addicted to. Where does that conflict come from? You know, tell me the story of losing a shipment and having to explain to your distributors how you don't have their $75,000 that month, and you got to put up your car and the deed to your house, or these niggas are gonna come kill you because no estamos jugando. Esto no es un juego, esto es un negocio como cualquier otro. And we're not fucking with you. tell me that story. Make it interesting. If you go, it doesn't matter to me what you rhyme about. You could rhyme about being a hustler. You could rhyme about being a killer, a school teacher, a weed addict, a revolutionary, a fucking party rapper. Just give it a dimension, my brother. That's all that people want, and that's success, right there. Real life. The only thing I changed about that story was me being on the roof. I never raped a woman. I wasn't part of that. But all those things that happened actually became reality. And the thing that I make a point of telling people all the time is that it really grew as an urban legend because it started to happen again and again, but the story was always a little bit different. Like it wasn't his mother, it turned out to be his aunt or his cousin, But because you're doing violence in your own community, how do you think that's not going to affect what happened? People told me it happened with some Bloods in Jersey. It happened with some gangs in South Africa and then a gang in London. It became worldwide. People were like, wow, this is so eerily similar to this. And I'm like, well, because we're all the same people, and we all think that we can gain power by inflicting pain on other individuals. But true power comes from people loving you and willing to sacrifice for you, not forcing individuals to sacrifice for you. That's the difference between demanding respect and commanding respect. And anybody who doesn't know the difference between those two doesn't understand respect and probably never got any in their life. So I think that, when you write stuff of that nature, it's always important that people realize that, yeah, that happens every day in this country. Look at the rape statistics on the military in this country. Look at the rape statistics in general at college. You're sending your daughter to school to learn. You're sending your sister to school to learn, your cousin, your daughter, and anybody. And look at what the potential is for her to be the victim of that crime. It's a reality that people don't like to discuss in this country, but that is true. And giving it a face and giving it that horrific imagery, I think made it impossible for people to ignore. So that's where the strength of the song comes from. I rarely ever perform that song. I think I've done it maybe 3 times, 4 times maybe. It takes a lot to do that, I basically took a lot of relationships that I had been in and friendships, and I compiled them into this incredible story, which makes it less in terms of chronologically speaking, in terms of how it worked out. It had to be shuffled around. Very different from Dance with the Devil, that's how it went down, as opposed to taking things and moving them to this, and then moving something that. So that's more an experience, I would say, in story writing and songwriting than it is of being, a fly on the wall or being a participant or being anything else in a story. When you talk about love and losing people, when you love someone, you see yourself as the best that you'll ever be through their eyes. You see yourself as the strongest, as the prettiest or the most handsome, The person believes in you so much, you believe in yourself. And that's why you feel like you're leaving a part of yourself when you leave that person. Because technically you are. You're leaving what you see yourself as. The trick is to love yourself someday so much that you actually don't need someone else to justify what you are or who you are, but someone that complements who you are, someone that's willing to grow with you. And if you can't find someone like that, well, then welcome to the rest of the world, because the majority of people who get married generally don't do it for love. It's still, the benefit of one family that joins another. Rich people want their businesses to stay connected. Royals only marry other royals. You got people in another country who can't marry out of their own caste. You got people who have arranged marriages here in America, not because they're Muslim or Hindu. No, it's because, dude, that's the type of person you're gonna marry. I don't give a fuck what you want. That's life. So I tell people, man, if you find someone, also remember that they're gonna have to deal with everything that you have in life, and if they're not ready to make that commitment and be able to sacrifice for that, what are you gonna do? Relationships also take time, take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of sacrifice. So They're very difficult to do, and you can't just leave someone alone and expect things to work out, you know? In the absence of the sun, the flower will grow towards even the dimmest 20-watt light bulb. So next time you're wilding out with your peoples and ignoring your shorty, you don't take care of your kids and your woman, somebody else will. That names have been changed to protect the innocent. I've had many runs with the cops. You know, I've had them pull guns on me, put a gun to my head. I've had all kinds of situations ever since I was 13, which is when I stopped being a cute little kid, I guess, for them and became a threat. They didn't see other people like that. And they think, oh, you know, here's this frat kid, he's just blowing off steam. Oh, here's this nigga from Harlem, you know, they needs to be caged and jailed so they learn society. Yeah, but you don't apply that standard to your own people. You know, you can't apply that to anybody else but yourself. So what are you're just preparing us to be permanent manual labor forever? You know, I think at some point there's a huge disconnect between the policing force and between the Black and Latino community in America. And I don't see the police department being mature enough to work towards fixing that. I think I see them make a lot of excuses for it. And I think that the Black and Latino community themselves are trying to become more empowering, and that's met with a lot of negative resistance from the NYPD and other police forces because they don't want to see people empower themselves over their own community. They want to maintain control and have any type of control. And I'm telling you right now, we will fight tooth and nail to have our own control over our own communities, to be well respected in our own communities. They say that there's no racism involved in their dealing with the police. I mean, the statistics speak for themselves. Death penalty statistics. It should be outlawed, by the way. It's just the reality of what we face here. Sometimes people in the ghetto feel like they live under an occupation, if you can imagine that. That's how they feel. Constantly searched and grabbed, and people can do anything to you that they want. Where's the freedom in that? This is an open society, supposedly. You know, it's a shame when the people that are supposed to be protecting the society victimize the people of that society. And I know all cops aren't like this, but I think there's a culture of sort of militant, no questions asked, do whatever I say, not I want to help you. And that's sad, and we need to move in the opposite direction, because that's the only thing that's going to help that relationship get by and to bring people the most amount of justice that they can experience. I don't know, I never died. I can't tell you for sure. We could philosophize all day. You know, a religious person would give you an answer, a certain answer. A scientist would give you a certain answer, but they'd both be lying because none of them know what the fuck it really is. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm smart enough to give you the answer to what it becomes. I mean, I know energy never dies. It turns into something else, so who's to say? I don't think, however, that we go to sleep and then wake up at these pearly gates, a bunch of fucking clouds, and people from the 2nd century waiting for us. That's just absurd. We make our own hell and we'll make our own heaven. So, Immortal Technique. Peace.